So what's the problem with BT corn? Seems like it solves the problem, right? The caterpillars were eating the corn was getting all gross and dying. The BT doesn't seem to affect humans or other animals at all, so what's the problem? Why are people opposed to this? It seems like it works great. Well, one of the biggest arguments against GMOs that we haven't really talked about yet is something called the Red Queen. So, what that means is if you change organisms to be resistant to diseases and pests, eventually those pests will also change to be resistant to whatever you changed the plant to be resistant to. So, let's explain it with some pictures. So, again, remember, insects can eventually become resistant to the BT corn. So let's watch this video.
About 80% of the corn and cotton planted in North America is genetically engineered to resist pest insects. These are commonly called BT crops and produce proteins that target very specific pests. The process of genetic engineering is faster and more precise than traditional breeding methods alone, allowing the modification or insertion of specific genes without altering any other traits. BT crops were created by using genes from Bacillus thuringiensis, or BT, which is a common soil bacterium that produces proteins that are toxic to some species of pest insects. The genes that produce these proteins were inserted into the DNA of the crop. As a result, the BT crop produces these proteins and defends itself against specific pests. When a pest feeds on the BT plant, the protein binds to receptors in the insect's gut, causing the gut wall to break down and rupture, leading to the death of the insect. These proteins must bind to specific receptors in the pest's gut to work. Other organisms, such as humans, other mammals, beneficial insects, and spiders, don't have those receptors and are unaffected. Although BT crops have helped manage pests for over 20 years, they are losing their effectiveness against some pests. Here are a couple of reasons why. First, while the goal of BT crops is to kill the target insects that feed on them, this is not always achieved due to natural variability of the levels of BT protein within a plant. This means that some tissues in a plant may not have lethal levels of the protein. Second, insect populations are also variable. By chance, some insects are naturally less susceptible to certain BT proteins. They will survive and reproduce while the majority of the population dies. This is how resistance develops, and resistance can always develop with any long-term pest management approach, including BT.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit because it's kind of confusing. So here we have a regular old corn plant. It has not been genetically modified in any way, and oops, there is a very hungry caterpillar. So the caterpillar will feast on the plant and eventually cause it to die. This caterpillar, who likes to eat corn, has enough energy and nutrients to reproduce, so he's going to produce a whole little caterpillar eating brigade there. So the farmer sees this happening and sees that they're losing all of their corn plants, so she decides to start planting BT corn. So that same little caterpillar shows up and takes a big bite of the corn and eventually gets really sick and dies. So now we don't have a problem with that caterpillar anymore, right? So like they said in the video, by chance, there might be a different type of caterpillar who also likes to eat corn, but is resistant to the BT. He can eat the poison and be fine, just like how birds can eat the capsaicin or how we are not bothered by essential oils. There might be some caterpillar who really likes this BT corn. Yeah, I love it. I am a BT resistant caterpillar. Your weapons have no effect on me, humans. So this caterpillar is able to reproduce, and they pass that trait, they pass those genes of being BT resistant on to their offspring. And now we have a whole army of caterpillars who love to eat BT corn. So the problem is we can never really get ahead of this. We can get a little bit ahead, but BT corn doesn't solve the whole problem forever. It just solves the problem for right now. And that is often an argument against GMOs. It's more like a band-aid than a cure.